Okay, we're up to Nun Zayin Amid Aleph. The Mishnah on Nun Vav Amid Beis had told us that you Mekadesh with certainly Surei Hana, it's Eina Mekudeshes. So we went through Orla, Klei Kerem, Shara Niskol, and now we're up to Egla Arufa. We got a list of, and want to know, these are over here. It's a list of those things that are what that are Asib Hana. Yanklik, it's right here. No one's right here. No, right there. Yeah, don't worry. I'm shorter than I used to be. Now, so where these surei no? These are sources for surei no. We know these are asabah no. What are the sources for these dinim? So by Egla Rufa, the pasuk tells us that Kaper la'amcha Yisrael asher padisa Hashem val titein dam naki b'kerev amcha. That it should be a kapara for the Am Yisrael that you redeem, and val titein dam naki. So we bring the Egla Rufa when we find a dead body between two cities and we don't know who's the guilty party. So Minalan, so Amad Debe Rabbi Yanai, Kapara Ksivbe, it says Kapar, Kapar La'amcha Yisrael, so Lashon of Kapara. So Kapara, I guess we learned from Kachim that it was not necessary to, it was Asa Bahana. If it's for a Kapara, L'chor it's Asa Bahana. Right, that was the I kachim, kappa ksevbei, and kikachim has a dinwad of kachim. Has a din of kachim. We know kachim is asabana. Sipurei mitzayra. Now, sipurei mitzayra. Like I always speak it out, but maybe I don't have to go through the psukim. But basically, in the parsha of Negoyim, we're told that we know that we did this quite a few times. That there's a process for the mitzayra. There's a process. It culminates with him bringing in Asham, and the purpose of the Asham is to allow him to eat other karbanis. The Asham is a hechsha. The Asham is brought with a like shemen, and we put on the Vahoinis, his right finger, his right ear, and his big toe. But that's 8 days after something transpires when he's chutz the machna. He's outside the machna. The kohen goes. He takes 2 birds. He takes a ezai v'shlit velas. And he shechs the bird and the live bird. He has 2 birds, one's dead, one's alive. And he takes the Ezer Shilas and he sprinkles the dam on the Mitzayra, and then he sends away that bird. He sends away that bird. That's Sipur Mitzayra. Now, so the birds of Mitzayra, it's not a carbon. It's just part of the protocol of the Tyra process of the carbon. So it's l'chayra. It's also a hechsher. It's a hechshara. It's not a final thing. So now, how do you know that Sipur Mitzayra is asabana? Now, first, which one are we speaking about? Are we speaking about the one you sent away, or are we speaking about the one that what you shechted? Which one are we speaking about is asabana? Which will be a discussion. So source, and then which bird Sipuri is birds. Which bird are we speaking about? So it's Sipuri mitzvah minala. The Tana Beri Bishmael Nema machsher umechaper v'bifnim. It says the machsher umechaper v'bifnim. So now, what's mechaper for us inside the Beis Hamikdash, fellas? Karbanis. Karbanis is mechaper for us. What's the machsher to bring karbanis? The machsher would be Asher Mitzayra. Rashi says Asher Mitzayra is a machsher. So it says machsher umechaper v'bifnim. V'nemar it says machsher umechaper b'chutz. It says a machsher and a mechaper b'chutz. What's an example of a mechaper b'chutz? We just did it. It's Egla Rufa, guys. Egla Rufa is a kapara, but it's not brought in the Beis Hamikdash. What's a hechsha b'chutz? Sipari mitzayra. It's also brought outside the Beis Hamikdash. So now we have the SAT analogies. Well, this is to this, like this is to this. Right? Every Asher is brought in this one, no? Right? No, but Asher mitzayra, even though it's a machsher, not a mechaper. It's a machsher, not a mechaper. Right? It's a machsher, not a mechaper. So now we have a relationship between the machsher and the mechaper b'mifnim. Good, and we have a relationship between the mechaper and machsher shebechutz. Okay, now what's it then? Just like the Asher Mitzayra and the other Karbanis, also by Machsher Kemechaper, the Asher Mitzayra will have the same halachas of the Mechaper. Af Machsher Mechaper Ama B'chutz, also by Machsher Kemechaper. So just like Egla Rufa is Asa Bahana, as we just said, because it says Kapra Amcha Yisrael, like Kachim, the Machsher that Sipuri Mitzayra will also be. Just like the mechaper b'chutz, the egla rufa is asab hana, because it's like a carbon. So too the tzipori, which are the heksher b'chutz, has a halacha of the egla rufa that it's also asa behana. That's the tushtal. Itmar tzipori mitzayra me'emasay masurim. At which point in time they become asa behana? At which point in time? Rabbi Yochanan mishash shchita, the time you shecht it. Reish Lakish is mishas lekicha, the time you buy it. Okay, exactly. Which point in time does it get asa behana? And we don't even know which one yet. But whichever one is asa behana, at which point in time does that transpire? Says the Gemara. Rabbi Yochanan is of the opinion mishas shchita. Reish Lakish is of the opinion mishas lekicha at the time of purchase. Rabbi Yochanan mishas shchita. Shchita huda asula. It's the shchita that the act of shchita asas. Reish Lakish is no mishas lechita. Why? Because we learn out from egla rufa. Ma egla rufa mechayim. Just like egla rufa is asa when it's alive. After tzipur mitzari mechayim, it's asa when it's alive. The egla rufa kufa me'emasai. The egla rufa when good, it's asa alive. At which point in time, right? Says Rashi, fellas, me'emasai neseres. Hoyel ve'ein damel kedoshim. Since its blood is not kodesh, loy Kidushin zbeach, loy Kidushin zbedek abayis. Neither elihi atzma la'arifa. In other words, there's no blood offering with egla rufa. Simply, I would say, not good for, but you decapitate it, right? You decapitate it. So, at which point in time, when it's alive, does it come asa? On Rabbi Yanai, givul shemati ba. I heard a givul. I heard a time span. B'shachachti, and I forgot it. The nasun chaverai, and my friends reminded me. Loimar yiridasay l'nachal esan. We know that the egla roof is brought down to a place that had never been cultivated, had never been sowed, had never been used. It was, I think the English term is virgin earth. It was right whatsoever, and you would go ahead, bring the egla roof there. Mistakenly, people think you bring the egla roof to the place where you found a dead body. You don't. You bring it down to this nachal esan. You decapitate it, and that's that, and then it's asa bahana. So says the going down before you decapitate. Going down, it's asa bahana. As soon as it's nachal esan. So he israsa. So therefore, you'll say that not the shas arifa is it asa bahana, fellas. At the time that it goes down to nachal esan. So too the tzipuri mitzayra at the time you buy it. In other words, the final act of the lifetime of the egla rufa is the decapitation. The final act of the lifetime of the tzipuri mitzayra is the shchita. But there was an act that transpired before, which was the act of lekicha, right? So we're now making an analogy between lekicha by the tzipori mitzayra to the arifa, to the going down to nachal esan. Says the Gemara, Ima egla rufa mishas lekicha loy mitzara. When you bought the egla rufa, it didn't become asa. After tzipori mitzayra nami mishas lekicha loy mitzara. Why at the time nachal esan? If you're telling me it's not the act of arifa, but it's a previous time, why don't we go ahead and say it's the time where you bought it and you designated it l'chayra as an egla arufa? Why b'shas you read the l'nachal esan? Why don't you go back to the earlier time? And if you don't, then how do you know tzipori mitzayra is the earlier time of lekicha? That's the answer. Hachiyashta. It's not comparable. Hasam by egla arufa islay gevul achrina. There's an other gevul besides lekicha. What's that other gevul? Going down to nachal esan. But tzipori mitzura, hachabay mitzay mitzura, mi islay gevul achrina. Aside from the shchita, there's no other time I could go besides the kicha. So the action is not. There's no 1, 2, 3. There's only 1 and 2. There's only 1 and 2. Masha'en came by egla rufa where I have 1, 2, and 3. I'll say that you don't go back to 1. You go to 2. Okay. So now we have let's go over what we saw tonight so far. Egla rufa, we know from Kaper, like it's kakachim. Where do you know tzipori mitzayra from? Right, because it's a machsha. It's a machsha b'chutz, and it's a machsha b'fnim, and just like the machsha b'fnim and the machsha b'chutz, b'fnim have the same halacha. So to the egla rufa, machsha b'chutz was asa b'hana. The tzipori, which is the machsha to the mechaper of egla rufa, also is asa b'hana. At which point in time is come asa b'hana? Machlokes Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish says at the time of the shchita, and Rabbi Yochanan says at the time of lekicha, and he learns out from egla rufa. Okay, Rabbi Yochanan. So, Esvei Rabbi Yochanan, who said b'shas lekicha, Reish Lakish, who says at the time of I said the opposite. Rabbi Yochanan says the shchita to Reish Lakish, who says mishas lekicha. I'm sorry. Kol tzipur tohira toichelu. Now, any kosher bird you could eat. The rabbi says hamushulachas. It goes ahead that you can include the mishulachas, the one that's sent away. You could eat it. Okay, so you have two birds. One's geshachten and one you send away. So the bird that's geshachten, you could what? You can't eat. The mishulachas, if it's found by another individual, you could eat it. Now, the pasuk also says, you shouldn't eat it. Mehem, the rabbi says, ashchuta, that with what's asa, the shchuta is asa. The shchuta is asa. In other words, so I have a pasuk telling me that what, fellas, the shchuta is asa. Good? So the question is like this. According to Reish Lakish, right, if you're going to say that it's asa mechayim, like you do, b'shas lekicha, like la'acha shchita mi boy, fellas, if I would tell you this pig, I need a pasuk to tell me a pig is asa to eat. Okay, I have a pasuk. Would you think it's the act of shchita? Would you need to tell me a pasuk to tell me that it's asa b'shas shchita, or would you say it's asa because it's asa? It's asa because it's asa, right? A pig. It says don't eat a pig, right? But
this bird was mutter until he did the lakicha.
According to Reish Lakish, it was asa b'shas lakicha.
But it was mutter before the lakicha.
But why do you need a pasuk to tell me that what? That it's asa shchita? It was asa before the shchita. Right. At the time of lakicha, at the time you bought it, it's asa, right? At the time you bought it, it's asa. So now I need a pasuk to tell me that what? That shchita asas, that's the kasha bishleim, according to me, that shchita is mishash shchita. I need a pasuk to tell me that why it's asa. But according to you, Reish Lakish, who says asa beforehand, why don't I need a pasuk? Okay, that's the kasha. Eser Rabbi Yochanan says you go after shchita. Reish Lakish says you go after lakicha. Kol tzipur tohara techelu. The rabbi says mishalachas. The rabbi says as a shchuta. If you're going to tell me it's asa mechayim, lacha shchita mi boy. It's certainly asa. So I might think maybe they have a kachim. I would think maybe it's like a kachim. The mechayim asiri, a korban is asa bahana when it's alive. The asya shchita comes on shchita umachshara lahu, and then it goes the act of shchita matters it. Kamash malon. So even though it's asa mechayim at the time of lekicha, you might think the act of shchita then it's asa b'shas lekicha. You might think the act of shchita, therefore what? Would make it muta similar to a carbon. Therefore, you need a pasuk to tell me no. So Reish Lakish has held serve. Rashi says, Vasa shchita machsheres la, imshar avodas, along with all the other avodas. The obvious shchita is not going to be mata. You need Kabbalah, the halacha, sarika. But nami tischash telacha gemar mitzvasa. After you shecht it and after you sprinkle the blood and everything, then it'll be muta at that time. So kamash not. Esibei, okay, shachta v'nimsa treifa, right? You go ahead, you shecht it, and you find it to be a treifa. Now it's mashma. When do you find it to be a treifa, guys? At the time of shchita. At the time of shchita, you're finding it to be a treifa, correct? Meaning, before this time, what was it? Mutta. Kasha on, Reish Lakish. Good. Yikach zug l'shniya. You don't say you can. It's not chutcha. Remember we had guys the sugya in Yuma of the two goats that one is gone. You have to do a whole new girl again because if you hold bali chaim nidachim, so you might think over here also, right? You bought two birds, and in one you shechted turned out to be a treifa. So maybe the bird that maybe you just take a second one. There's no girl over here. You can use the existing bird. It's not a carbon. There's no dichay over here. So there's no dichay over here. So if you go ahead, you kachsu l'shniya. By Rishayna and the treifa, mutaris bana. And the Rishayna, the treifa, is mutaris bana. Bisakadaitach, mechayim asura, Rishayna amay mutaris behana. Why would the treifa be mutar bana? Right? It was asa when? From before you shechted it. It was always existing asa. So Amalei, so Reish Lakish told Rabbi Yochanan, Hachamayaskinan gan shenimsas treifa. If It was found out to be a treifa b'mnei me'ayin. Loichalule kedusha klal. Pirish. The havamina of the Gemara was when you shechted it, that created the treifa. In other words, you found it at that point in time. In other words, it's something that you could have possibly known about. And Mashain came if it's in the inner, it's something that you couldn't possibly know about, right? It's speaking about something that you couldn't possibly know about. In that situation where it's something that you couldn't possibly know about, when you were magdish the bird, you took it as a tzipori mitzaira, it was not acceptable. Memela, therefore, even though usually it's b'shas l'kicha, in this case there was no kedusha at all. Even when you bought it, there was no kedusha. Even when you shechted, there's no kedusha. So therefore, Reish Lakish is what Reish Lakish has held serve. Eisvei shachta shaloi be'ezad, v'shaloi be'etz erev, v'shaloi b'shnei tolas. Again, as we said, you need the shchita, you need a haisap, an eitz erez, a piece of cedar wood, and a red thread, and then 2 birds. And let's say you shechted and you only have the birds, and you're missing one of the other ingredients, right? You're missing one of the other ingredients, right? Rabbi Yaakov Oimer says, Rabbi Yaakov, hoyel b'huktzal mitzvasa, since it was set aside for a mitzvah to do the mitzvah, right? Asura, you can't. It's asa. Since it was set aside, what for? It's asa. Rav Shimon Oimer, hoyel v'nishchata shloikim mitzvasa, since it was shechta shloikim mitzvasa, muteres. Now you had a shchita over here. The question is, it was a shchita sheina ruya, guys, right? It was a shchita sheina ruya because why? The shchita is for the purpose of the protocol of mitzvah. To complete the protocol, you need these other ingredients, right? You don't have them. So can you eat it or not? Says the Tanakama, dasa. Right? Says Rabbi Shimon, it's muta. I can like pligi ella marsava. Rabbi Yaakov's of the opinion shchita in ruah shma shchita. The shchita in ruah is shma shchita, and therefore what? It will be asa. Well, marsava shchita shen ruah lo shma shchita. Therefore, it will be muta. In other words, once it's considered a shchita, I know the geschachten in a bird of mitzvah is asa b'hana, right? So therefore, if it's a good shchita, right, then it's asa b'hana. If it's not a good shchita, then it's muta. Right? If it's not only it's muta, you'll probably be able to eat it. When we say not a good shchita from mitzvah, not that it's not a good shchita, not the everyday tikadin, the goyim tikadin. Okay, now, so ad kan the machloikus is what whether you say shchita shen ruya or not. Like the kuli al mamila mechayim loy mitzvah. Everyone says that mechayim wasn't asa. The whole shaila came about what about the mitzvah and the ingredients, but it wasn't asa. In other words, the whole needin between Rabbi Yaakov and Rabbi Shimon, guys, is in the shchita. The whole needin is in the shchita, correct? No, right. But in other words, and if you had everything, then everything would be good. But l'chayra, why is telling the shchita that you're Reish Lakish? You have to go back to the time of the lakicha, right? That's the kasha. So it's Gemara Tanoi. He's forced to say it's machlokes Tanoim, right? So the first one clearly over here says you go after shchita, and now we're going to bring a brisa of the yeshiv Rabbi Yishmael that Rabbi Reish Lakish goes according to the Tana of Rabbi Yishmael, right? So the machlokes Rabbi Yaakov, Rabbi Shimon, they say that shchita asses like Rabbi Yochanan, but the Tana of Rabbi Yishmael nama it says nema machshar umachapim b'bifnim. Okay, let's go through this again. The machshar b'bifnim is what Hashem Mitzayra. The machapim b'fnim is any carbon. V'nema machshar umachapim b'chutz, and it says machshar umachapim. Machshar is the tzipori mitzayra. Machapim is egla rufa. Ma machshar umachapim amar b'fnim also a machshar k'mechaper. I'll treat the machshar like the mechaper. Af machshar umachapim amar b'chutz also a machshar k'mechaper. Right. So let's see Rashi. Dibur masal tanoihi, and we'll see b'shat tanoihi. Hai tanoi svir lahu kidaka amrit. Tlei mitzvah. The Tana of Yishmael the Yolaf Machshim Mechaper Svirule the Mitzvah Mechayim Kim Mechaper. Just like the Mechaper, guys, is Asa Bahana. The carbon is Asa Bahana when it's alive. So to the Machshir is Asa Bahana. Okay, so let's go through what we saw. Okay, Sipar Mitzvah, we know what is Asa Bahana. Why? Because it's compared to Egla Rufa. And we said that before. At which point in time does it get asa? That's a machlokes Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish. Rabbi Yochanan says shchita. He has a brisa that goes according to him. Reish Lakish says a brisa according to him because he holds that along the way we're going to treat the machshir like the mechaper, just like the mechaper is mechayim. The egla ruf is mechayim. The egla ruf is mechayim, right? It's also mechayim when it goes down to nachleisen. So no one said b'shas arifa. Everyone said what? That goes down to nachleisen. So too, by the time you buy it, and this would be This would be the source. Okay, very interesting. This is what Mamish old Gemara about Zikor Mitzayra. Ufa. Kol Tzipa Tahira Tochelu. The Rabbi says some shalachas that you could eat it. V'zera shaloi seichlu mehem. The Rabbi says ashchuta. That what? That the shchuta is asa. Even though you had a shchita, it's asa. It's asa. Not only is it asa b'achil, it's asa b'na. You had a perfect shchita, asa b'na. Anan ama. So the epachana. Why don't we say the opposite? Why don't we say that the bird that you shecht is kosher, and the one that you send away is asa? Guys, we're saying there's two birds. One that's alive and one that's dead. The one that's dead is asa. The one that's alive is muta. And I'm learning out from Psukim. One says you could eat, one says you can't eat. And we're learning out the one you could eat is the one you send away, and the one you can't eat is the one that's geshachten. I got a geshachten, a bird in front of me. What's wrong? I should be able to eat it, right? So let's say the oichlu is going on the geshachten, a bird, and the loisachlu is going on the bird you send away. You don't find Bali Chaim that are asa. Rashi says, the last Rashi in the page, we don't find any Bali Chaim that's asa oilam. We find Bali Chaim that's asa, but not forever. And now you're going to tell me this Bali Chaim is asa forever? No. Maskler or Shmuel Bar Yitzchak, 1 second. V'loi, Amid Beis, V'harei Muktzah, an animal that was set aside for Avodah Zarah. V'nevad, an animal that was served as Avodah Zarah. The Bali Chaim Ninu V'asiri. You can't bring them as karbanis. Says the Gemara, Ki Asri L'Gavaya, L'Hegyed Mishra Shari. In other words, if an animal is set aside of Avodah Zarah, served as Avodah Zarah, you could eat it. You could use it for as a korban. It was something not such a nice thing to do, right? To bring what's the lashon of pasuk? Hakav lo lepechasecha, go serve it to your governors, but not Hakadosh Baruch Hu, right? So therefore, you're right. Bali Chaim, the non-asir soilam is maskav lo Rabbi Yirmiyah. Hari roiva v'nerva be'edim. Roiva v'ner is an animal that actus nus was done to it or to somebody else. The Bali Chaim ninu, that they are live animals. Va'asiri, and they're asa, even though they're alive. So how can you tell me that what? Maybe the whole reason that the one that's sent away is asa because it can't be because we don't find Bali Chaim, right?
That is the niskol, right?
Huh?
The niskol, considered dead.
That's the kasha. So the kasha is you see that what? You see that they're asa, even though they were alive at this point in time. They're not. You told me you don't find Bali Chaim that are asa. Here's Bali Chaim that are asa. You have to kill them, but when they're alive, they're asa. All that proves somebody's asa. Okay, says the Gemara, you're right. So Ella, what do you have to say? We find most of the Bali Chaim asurim. We don't find roivach, and therefore, if I have my druthers to say one's going to be asa, one's going to be muta, I'll say the geshachten is asa and the Bali Chaim, because since roiv Bali Chaim are muta, I'll say the one you're sending away is muta. I'll say the one you're sending away is muta. Now, that's one source. That's Rabbi Yochanan. Another source, the Tana Rabbi Yishmael, they learn Yeshiva Rabbi Yishmael, right? Rabbi Yishmael Tana, the Amakra, the pasuk says, okay, let me get the pasuk. These new Gemaras are great. I'm just looking written here. Pasuk says, "V'hizar alimitaher minat saras sheva pamim v'tiharoi v'shilach es hatzipor achai al pnei asada." And I'll send out the live bird al pnei asada. Once you sprinkle with the haisap and the shitalas and the ezoi with the dead bird and the live bird 7 times on the mitzayra, you send away the shilach al pnei asada. And what does that mean? Kisada. We'll treat that live bird like kisada. Masada muteres, just like a field's muta. Af hainami, so too what? The live bird is muta. So again, you want to say the opposite, to say the live bird should be asa? No. Either because we don't follow Bali Chaim, or because an analogy to Sadeh, just like a Sadeh is muta, so too the live bird will be muta. Fred the Gemara, hi Sadeh lahachi asa. What do you mean? It's going to teach that a live bird is a muta? Homi boyle, I need a Sadeh for another limud. The Chiditanya Sadeh Shlo yamud bi Yapoy. You shouldn't stand in the town of Yafoy because you can liyam and send the bird out to the sea. Bigabes, which is the name of a city, because you can midbar and send it out to the midbar. Shlo yamud chutz la'ir. You shouldn't stand outside the city because you can b'sachir and send it inside the city. Elakol sha'omer be'ir because you can chutz l'chayma. If you're standing inside the city, send it out to chayma. So therefore, I needed to teach me that halacha. So how can I use it to teach me that it's mutter for the bird? The idach, the one who says it is mutter for the bird, and kain nichtav across sadeh. If it only wanted to teach me this halacha that you should send it out from the city to chutz the city, mahas sadeh. Why would you have to say the word hasad? The extra hey, shma min tarti. You hear what? Two halachas. You hear the halacha, the what that where you have to send it out from one city to chutz to the city, and a halacha of what? That's just like an analogy to the sadeh. Just like the sadeh is mutter, so too the bird that's sent away is mutter. So again, two questions. You had a question: why in fact do we go ahead and say the heter for achila is on the mishulachas, the sent away bird, and the isser is on the geshachten bird? Why don't we say the opposite? Because we have tuli mudim to teach me that the bird that is sent away should be mutter, either because roiv bali chayim are mutter, right? Roiv bali chayim are mutter, or because of the analogy to sadeh. A third pshat, and the one that made the most sense to me, Ravam, it's a svara. Fellas, if this bird is going to be asa, yeah, what happens? The next guy finds it. In other words, you send away a bird and you find, oh, look at that. Look at that nice looking piece of duck or something. I don't know, it was a tzipor, whatever the bird was. You're hungry, you take it. Guess what? And you have no way of knowing. You have no way of knowing, right? So, no, this big thing. Why don't you go after Roif? There's a lot of lumdus over here, guys. That's bittul, but no, that's when it gets mixed in with other things. No. The lumdus is it's a berry, it's a living thing. So a berry gets mixed in with the afilu elefle bottle. But over here, it's not mixed in. Well, you go after Roif, but it's not mixed in. It's not mixed in. So that's the rate over here. But that's interesting Torah over here. But the bottom line is, if you look, we have a pasuk, guys. Like Rava says to the svara. What's the svara? It makes no sense to say you're sending away a bird that someone else is going to pick up and get messed up, right? But we have a pasuk. The pasuk says, "Loi teichlu l'rabbis, teichlu l'rabbis ha'mishlachas." So what does Rava need a pasuk for? Says Rashi, it's an asmach d'alma. Says Rashi Enochnami, the pasuk of the pasuk that says called sipa Torah that you should eat that include the mishlachas is an asmachta be'alma. It's an asmachta. Okay, so another thing that was also been was the petach hamor. What's the no? I skipped the ser nazir. Now we're familiar with the sechta naziris, right? One of the things is you take greasy hair. Remember, you put the hair, you put a little shemen on the hair, the carbon. And you put it underneath the fire, and boom! Did you know that you cannot make a mattress out of nazir here? Because you think it's a mitzvah to burn it? It's asabana. If you would take it and that master it, you wouldn't be able to use it. The seir of a nazir is asabana. How do you know that? How do you know the seir of a nazir is asabana? Says the Gominalon. Damakra. The pasuk says, "Kaidesh yiyeh." That's the pasuk. It says by Mitzayra. Kol yimei neder nizroi tar lo yaval roishay, a razor should not go over his head. Ad melos hayomim asher yazal Hashem kodesh yiyeh god leperet. Kodesh yiyeh, Rabbi Stam Naziris is 30 days. Yiyeh is gematria is 30, right? So it says kodesh yiyeh god leperet sa roishay. Gidulo yiyeh kodesh. So his gidul, his chup should be kodesh, right? I used to tell that to Rav Matel. Says the Gemara, ima kodesh toifes es dama v'yatz l'chulin. You could be paid the kachim. If it doesn't have kedushas aguf, you could be paid it. So obviously this doesn't have kedushas aguf. So afser nazir taifus es damav. If you paid it, right, it should go ahead and the money should become kodesh. The yatzal chulin and the ser nazir should go to chulin. Says mi karinon kodesh. Do we say that kodesh? It is hegdish. Kodesh karinon. It's a verb. It's in a state of kedusha, guys. It's not kodesh like it's a noun. It's kodesh. Yeah, it's a constant state of kedusha, and therefore you can't go ahead and be poided. Petach hamar. What's petach hamar? Every animal has a din of bechar. Kosher animals have a din of bechar. Every treif animal does not, with one exception. The chamar. I think the Gemara tells us that in Mitzrayim that we took us, they schlepped us out a bunch of stuff. They were schlepping because Baruch was not mikapeya called star called Bavaria. So the Chamor that schlepped that stuff out of Mitzrayim, so it's kedusha. I tell you what the Gemara says. I'll tell you what the Gemara says. And a Bilam, I mean, it could be another shot. Just like what the Gemara says. What? Yeah. So 50 percent. So what do? You paid it with a seh. You take a seh, say the kedusha of the now. If you're loisif there, and if you're not paid there, after you break its neck, you decapitate it, right? You decapitate it. It's asa b'hana. At which point in time is it asa b'hana? Okay, says the Gemara Petach Amar. Name of Masnisan the like Reb Shimon. Let's say our Mishnah is not like Reb Shimon. The Tanya Petach Amar asa b'hana. The Reb Yehuda. Reb Shimon not matter. Reb Shimon says it's mutter. It's machlokes. Machlokes. He says what? It's machlokes in b'chayris, and he says what? It's mutter. Rav Nachman Amar Rabba Avua. La'acharifa divriyakol. You know what we're speaking about? La'acharifa sham barfu sham Miriam. If tarifa, it's asa b'hana. Right? I think that's what we learned by Yaglarufa. Anyway, so therefore everyone would agree that once you break its neck and you chop its head off, that's going to be asa b'hana. So you imagine going with the Kidushin Isha with a donkey head. Okay, stop showing your bakiyas. Okay. Anyway, I don't know what you're talking about.
Keep technology away from it. Take technology.
It's after going to take the news side. Anyway, all of a sudden, everyone wakes up. You know, all of a sudden. Everyone wakes up. Everyone's a bucky.
9 hours.
Basa b'chalav. It's asa b'hana, guys. Minolan. The Tana Rabbi Shmuel. It says in the Torah, like Savashal Gadi b'chalev mo, you shouldn't cook a goat in its mother's milk. Gimel pamim 3 times. Echad is la'achila, 1 time it's asa to eat. The echad is sana, 1 time it's asa b'hana. The echad is a bishul. It's even asa to cook. Okay, so it says that that's how you know that it's asa b'hana. My season's like Tana. Our Mishnah is not like this Tana. The Tanya, if Shim ben Yehuda Oimer, Vasa b'chol vasa b'achila mutabana. It's asa b'achila. It's mutabana. Shenemar ki am kodesh ata l'Hashem Elokecha v'savash gedi b'chalev imo v'lahalon Oimer. It says anshe kodesh tiuli by vasa v'sad b'treif v'leisachelu l'kelev techlichon oisai anshe kodesh tiuli ma lahalon by nevela. Asa b'achila muta b'hana, avkan and vela treifetz asa b'achila muta b'hana, avkan by basa b'chalav asa b'achila muta b'hana, and therefore it's not considered one of the. It's not considered one of the. According to him, it's not. Could be mekadosh nisha with basa b'chalav. Now chulin shenishchlu b'azar is not so pasha. Chulin shenishchlu b'azar is you take an animal that's not kodesh and you shecht it in the azara. So that animal's asa b'hana. Minani mili. How do you know it's asa b'hana? Okay, we're going to begin and we're going to continue tomorrow. Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Reb Meya. Torah. The Torah says, right? Torah. The Torah says. Torah shechait es azvachim. You should shech the korbanis and li shachali. That means what does shachali mean? Bishali, right? Mind that you should shecht mine in my place, b'shalcha and yours, b'shalcha in your place. So my karbonis should be shechted in the Beis HaMikdash, and your chulin should be shechted outside the Beis HaMikdash and not inside the Beis HaMikdash. Okay, we don't know Issa Hano yet. We just know that that's the Issa of Chulishus Vazara. However, Shali b'shalcha asa b'hana, my karbonis outside to you is asa b'hana. You never had a heta. So af shalcha b'shali is asa b'hana. Just like if you shech the carbon outside the Beis HaMikdash, you didn't have a heta to eat it. So asa b'hana, it remains in the state of kedusha. So to chulin that you're supposed to shecht outside and you shecht inside it, it's asa b'hana. Ayileski ma shali b'shalcha einish karis. If you shecht my carbon outside, it's called shchutei chutz chayav karis. Shalcha b'shali, right? Amakra einish karis amakra. Al Pesach al Moyed lo heviu la'achar carbon Hashem v'nichras al carbon einish karis al chulin shnis v'azar lo ein einish karis. So then ikal lemifrich malish shaliva shalcha shekain is karis. You know why it's asa b'hana? Because you get an anish karis. But chulim in azara, where you're not going to get karis, maybe it's not asa b'hana. Al Rabbi says mehacha. It says 3 times in the Torah. Ushchatay pesach oil mayed. A second time it says v'shacharei soy lifnei oil mayed, and the third time it says v'shacharei soy lifnei oil mayed. So we have three shchitas to work with. Tilsa kroy yuseri, 3 extra pesukim. Umat talmud loim. What do you have to tell me each one? If you shenemar, it says by basa taiva, guys. In the midbar, where it wasn't far, you didn't eat basa taiva. You bring a carbon and you eat it. But in the base of Migdal, but once they settled in Eretz Yisrael, it was far away. So you wanted to eat, you wanted a barbecue, right? Now you had a heto. What does it say? The pasuk. It says, "Ki yirchach mimcha hamakoim, asher yifcha Hashem alakecha lashon shmai sham." If you're a distance away from the place where Kadosh Baruch Hu chose to spread His name, v'savachta mibcharcha mitzayncha asher nasam Hashem lecha, and you should shecht from your bakar or from your tzayin, your small livestock that Hashem gave you. Eat it wherever you want. Okay, that's what it says. Now, the ainly, excuse me, the zavachta, the rochamakamato zaveach. When could you eat basataiva? When you're far away from the Beis Hamikdash. V'yato zaveach b'makom karav. But when you're in the azara, right, you can't shecht what prat l'chulin shel bazara. In other words, the animal fellas that you would shecht outside, you can't shecht inside. When you're far away, you could shecht the animal. When you get close, meaning inside, you can't shecht the animal. And this is the source for shchulin shenitzu b'azara. Now, the ainli ella bitmimim. I would say only that's an animal that's tamim. Harui and the karev that you could possibly bring inside. Minayin l'rabbeis bale mumim. How do you know that even if you bring a bal mum and shecht it inside, that's asa? Ma'abanias bale mumim shekain min hamachsher, because it's from the type of animal that's kosher. It has a mum, but it's in the ballpark. Minayin l'rabbeis esachaya. How do I know to include a deer that even though it's not in the ballpark, you will be over in chulin shnitzu v'azara? Ma'abanias achaya shehi b'shchitas kebehema, because it requires a shchita. So therefore, the third one is what about a bird? A bird is right. If you go ahead and check the bird in the azara, you're over on the isra of chulin shnitzu v'azara. Tamalayma u'shchatay v'shachar isay v'shachar isay. So we have these 3 things: one for what? One for a balmum, one for what? One for a deer, and one for a chicken. And then each one will be asa. So yachala yishchait b'imshachat yei muta. I might think you shouldn't do it, but how do you, I would think it's muta b'hana to eat. Hamaloi mak yirchak mecham makim v'zavachta v'yachalta masha tezavech v'yirchak makim ato oichal. And with that you shech far away, you could eat. The ato oichal masha tezavech b'makim karav. Pat l'chulin shenus b'azara. Okay, and we'll pick it up here tomorrow because it's in the middle of it goes down the blot a little bit. Okay. We're going to say something to Hillam now.